They say ghosts aren't real. I used to agree. In fact, I made a hobby out of debunking them. Urban legends, haunted hotels, cursed objects. I thought fear was just the brain's way of filling in the blanks when the dark got too quiet. But that was before Room 313. Before I learned that belief doesn't matter when something decides it wants you. You don't have to believe me. I almost wish you wouldn't. Because once you start listening, really listening, it's already too late. I still have the recording. I wish I didn't. Sometimes at night, when everything's silent, my phone plays it by itself. Just a few seconds long, static, and then a woman's voice whispering my name. That's the part that doesn't make sense. I never told anyone which room I stayed in. No one at the hotel should have known who I was, but the voice on that recording, she did. If you're expecting jump scares or ghostly cliches, you're going to be disappointed. This isn't a campfire story. This is something else, something that starts like every business trip you've ever taken. A stale hotel lobby, a receptionist half asleep behind the counter, a faint smell of industrial cleaner and old carpet, and then a mistake. A small, simple mistake. They gave me the wrong room key. The tag read 313, but I didn't realize it until I was standing outside the door. The hallway was colder there, not freezing. Just the kind of cold that makes you hesitate to breathe. I remember joking to myself that it felt like the air conditioner was leaking ghosts. But that's the thing about jokes. Sometimes they age into prophecies. If I'd gone back to the front desk and asked for the right key, maybe none of this would have happened. But I was tired, annoyed, and honestly, I just wanted to drop my bag and crash. Instead, I opened the door. It's strange what your mind notices first. Not the smell of dust or the way the wallpaper peeled like skin, but the quiet, the absolute unnatural silence. I should have left right then. Because what happened in room 313 wasn't a haunting. It was a message. Proof that something, or someone, on the other side was waiting to be found. It all started 3 months ago, when my company booked me into the wrong hotel room. It was supposed to be a routine business trip, a 2-day conference, some dull networking, then back home. I'd booked late, so most hotels near the venue were full. The only one left was the Crescent Arms, a name that sounded a lot fancier than the reality. The lobby looked like it hadn't changed since the 1970s, the kind of place where the wallpaper had yellowed from too many cigarettes, and the air carried that faint smell of mildew and something sweeter, like rotting fruit. The clerk behind the counter didn't look up right away. He was middle-aged, thin, with dark circles under his eyes that made him look like he hadn't slept in a week. When I gave him my name, he flipped through an old ledger book, not a computer system, an actual ledger, and frowned. "You're with the tech company, right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just one night." He hesitated before handing me the key. Not a card, a real brass key, dangling from a chipped red tag that read 313. The metal felt cold, even through my hand. That room," he muttered. "It's usually out of service." I raised an eyebrow. "Out of service? Is there an issue?" He blinked, as if he hadn't meant to say anything at all. "Maintenance problems," he said quickly, "but it should be fine for one night." He looked at me like he wanted to say something and didn't. I should have asked for another room, but I was too tired to care, and there was a line forming behind me. I took the key, forced a polite smile, and walked toward the elevator that groaned like it was holding a grudge against gravity. The third floor smelled different, older, like the air itself hadn't been changed out in years. The hallway lights flickered in uneven intervals, half-lit 1 second, swallowed by shadows the next. I counted the doors as I passed. 309, 311, 313. The key tag was cracked, like someone had tried to break it. That was the first detail that stuck in my head. When I slid the key into the lock, the door creaked open on its own, like it had been waiting. The room was old-fashioned. No, preserved. Everything looked exactly like a photo from the 1980s. The floral carpet, the rotary phone, the heavy drapes that didn't match the bedspread. It wasn't filthy, but there was a stillness, like no one had touched anything for decades. A faint smell, iron and dust, hung in the air. I told myself it was just an old building, nothing more. I dropped my bag on the dresser and sat on the bed. The mattress was too soft, the kind that swallows you whole. That's when I noticed the picture on the wall, an old black and white photo of the hotel itself taken from the street. Every window in the picture looked normal, except one. The third floor, second from the left, the window that should have been mine. In the photo, there was a shape inside it. A dark outline, like a person standing there, watching. I blinked. When I looked again, it was gone. A trick of the light, I told myself. Dust. Reflection. Anything logical. I unpacked, turned on the lamp. It flickered and the bulb made that faint electric buzzing sound that feels too close to whispering. I remember exhaling, trying to laugh at my own nerves. "It's just an old hotel," I said out loud, like saying it would make it true. But when I turned toward the door, I realized something. The Do Not Disturb sign was already hanging on the handle, from the inside. I told myself it was just an old building, until I opened the door. I tried to shake off the weird feeling after finding the Do Not Disturb sign on the inside of the door. Maybe housekeeping hung it there by accident. Maybe the previous guest forgot to take it down. I told myself that as I double-locked the door anyway. I ordered some takeout, answered work emails, and watched a few videos on my laptop, the usual routine. By the time I turned off the lights, the old radiator in the corner was clicking like it was trying to form words. The bed springs groaned under my weight. I stared at the ceiling, counting the faint water stains that looked a bit too much like faces. Then, somewhere down the hall, a door shut. Hard. It wasn't unusual. Old hotels make noises, right? But the sound wasn't distant. It was close. Too close. Maybe 1 or 2 doors away. I held my breath and listened. At first, all I heard was the faint hum of the air vent. Then came the sound of humming. It was soft, gentle. A tune that didn't belong in the middle of the night. It drifted through the wall from the room next to mine, room 315. I remembered the front desk clerk saying my room was usually out of service. The way he said it made me realize something. Maybe that whole wing was empty. I got up, pressed my ear to the wall. The humming stopped. Dead silence. My heart thudded against my ribs as I pulled away. Then came 3 slow knocks, not from the hallway, but from inside the wall itself. Knock. 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 I froze. My mouth went dry. Every rational part of me scrambled for an explanation. Old pipes, air pressure, maybe the building settling. Anything but what it felt like. Someone trying to get my attention. I turned the TV on for background noise just to fill the silence. The hum of static felt safer than quiet. I must have sat there for an hour, staring at nothing, convincing myself it was just in my head. Eventually, exhaustion won. I left the TV on low, turned off the lamp, and lay back. That's when I heard the whisper of footsteps. Not heavy ones, light, slow, deliberate. The kind that belong to someone who doesn't want to be heard. They moved across the carpet, stopping just outside the bathroom door. The bathroom light flickered on. My pulse spiked. I hadn't moved. The switch was on the inside. I sat up slowly, eyes fixed on the bathroom doorway. The light flickered again, long enough for me to see my own reflection in the mirror. But there was something behind me. A dark shape. Too tall. Too still. I spun around. Nothing. Just shadows stretching across the wall from the flickering light. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped inside. The mirror was fogged, even though there was no steam, no shower, no heat. My breath left faint trails in the cold air, colder than it had been minutes ago. That's when I noticed the humming again. But this time, it wasn't coming from the wall. It was inside the room. I pointed my phone's light toward the sound. The glow caught the edge of the shower curtain, gently swaying. Someone had drawn the curtain closed. I was sure I'd left it open. Every instinct screamed to leave it alone, but my hand moved on its own. I grabbed the curtain and yanked it back. Nothing. The drain gurgled, the hum faded, and I realized I was shaking. My flashlight trembled in my grip, the beam catching glimpses of old, cracked tiles. One tile near the bottom looked darker, like a stain that had seeped in too deep to ever scrub out. I laughed nervously, forcing air out of my lungs. Get it together, I muttered. I checked my phone, half out of habit. The camera app was open. I didn't remember turning it on. And there, frozen on the screen, was the last frame of video, my reflection in the mirror. Behind me, over my shoulder, something pale and blurred leaned in close enough that its breath should have fogged the glass. I deleted the video immediately, locked my phone. The humming stopped the second I turned off the light. By morning, I had convinced myself it was nothing. But the room hadn't finished with me. By morning, I'd done what everyone does after a night of creeping shadows. I rationalized it. Old building, bad wiring, trick of the light. I even laughed about it while brushing my teeth, though my voice cracked halfway through. When I stepped into the lobby, the clerk from last night was there. Same bored face, same name tag that read Daniel. But this time, he looked up too quickly, like he'd been waiting for me. "Sleep well?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, apart from the humming. His smile froze, then fell. The air between us seemed to thicken. "Did you say humming?" "Yeah." I forced a laugh. "Coming from the next room, I think." Daniel's eyes darted toward the wall of room keys. I noticed how 313 was missing from the rack, replaced by a blank hook. He hesitated, then leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Sir, are you sure it was coming from next door?" Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. "Why? Is someone staying there?" I asked. "No," he said too quickly. Then he cleared his throat. "That room's supposed to be closed for maintenance." "Then why give it to me?" Daniel didn't answer. He just rubbed the back of his neck and muttered, "Sometimes the system, look, it's complicated." Before I could press, a housekeeper entered the lobby, short, middle-aged, with a cleaning cart that squeaked as she pushed it. She froze when she saw me holding my room key. Her eyes narrowed. "What room are you in?" 313. She crossed herself so fast I barely caught it. Then she whispered something under her breath, a prayer, maybe, before shaking her head. "Don't stay there," she said. "That room, it's not right." I half smiled, thinking she was joking. "What's that supposed to mean?" But she wasn't smiling. She turned to Daniel. "Why did you put him in her room?" Her voice trembled at the word her. Daniel's face went pale. "Maria, please." She ignored him. "You have to move. People who stay there." She stopped herself, eyes darting toward the empty hall behind me. "They don't sleep the same after." I frowned. "You're really serious right now?" Maria glanced down. She was found there, years ago, in that room. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. "Found?" Maria nodded. "A guest? A woman traveling alone? Nobody knows why she was there. When they opened the room, she was sitting on the bed, eyes open." She paused, her lips trembling, but her body was gone. I blinked. "What?" "They found the room soaked, not blood, not water, something else. Like the air had turned heavy. Her clothes were there, her shoes, her purse, but no body. The coroner wrote, 'Undetermined disappearance.'" Daniel finally spoke up. "Maria, that's enough." She didn't look at him. "If you hear her humming again," she whispered to me, "don't answer." For a moment, all I could hear was the hum of the lobby lights. I forced a laugh, but it came out thin. "You're telling me the place is haunted?" Daniel sighed. "We don't use that word here, but if you'd like, I can move you to another room, no charge." I should have said yes. Anyone with common sense would have. But there was something in the way he said it, like he knew something I didn't, like moving rooms wouldn't actually matter. And besides, curiosity is stronger than fear when you've already seen something you can't explain. I leaned on the counter. "No, it's fine, I'll stay. I just wanted to understand." Daniel looked at me for a long time, then quietly said, "Just keep your door locked, and if you hear her again, pretend you didn't." I thanked them both, grabbed a coffee, and went back upstairs. The elevator creaked like it was sighing. When I stepped out, the hallway seemed longer than before. Lights humming, carpet damp with that same metallic smell. Room 313's door looked older now. The brass numbers had turned black around the edges. I slid the key in, hesitated, and thought about Daniel's face when I said the word humming. But I opened the door anyway. The room was cold, colder than before. My coffee steamed in my hand even though it was lukewarm. The air felt aware. On the bedside table, the Bible was open. I hadn't touched it. The pages fluttered even though the window was closed. I closed it slowly, trying not to breathe too loud. Then I remembered Maria's warning. If you hear her humming again, don't answer. So that night, when I set my phone on the desk to record, just to prove I wasn't losing my mind, I told myself it was for curiosity, for closure. But deep down, I already knew the truth. That room wasn't abandoned. It was waiting. And that night, when the recording started, everything changed. I didn't sleep that night, not really. The room's silence was never total. It had weight, like it was pressing against my ears. Every creak of the pipes felt like a finger running down my spine. But somehow, exhaustion finally dragged me under just before dawn. When I woke up, the first thing I did was reach for my phone. The screen glared at me, 6 hours and 43 minutes of audio captured. My thumb hovered over the file. It was just a precaution, I told myself. Just evidence to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. I hit play. At first, it was what you'd expect from a cheap hotel. Faint hum of the air conditioner, the occasional groan of pipes, my own uneven breathing. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the tinny hiss of static in my earbuds. Then, at the 1:12 a.m. mark, something changed. A sound, faint but distinct, threaded through the noise. Not the pipes, not the building settling. A low, soft humming, rising and falling like someone in another room trying not to be heard. I froze. The hairs on my arms prickled. It was the same tune I'd heard the night before, slow, almost like a lullaby. I felt my throat go dry. I told myself it was interference. Maybe someone in the hallway, maybe even the housekeeper, anything. But at 2:37 a.m., the humming stopped, abruptly, mid-note. Then came a whisper, too soft to make out at first, like lips brushing the microphone. I held the phone closer to my ear. The whisper came again, this time clearer. My name. It said my name. I yanked the earbuds out and dropped the phone on the bed like it had burned me. My heart hammered so hard I felt it in my teeth. I forced myself to put the buds back in, scrolling back to be sure. The file didn't lie. There it was again, just after 2:37 a.m. A breathy, drawn-out whisper, curling around my name like smoke. I tried to tell myself I was half asleep, that I'd murmured my own name, or dreamed it. But then the timestamp caught my eye. 3:13 a.m. I almost didn't press play. Some part of me knew what was waiting there. The humming returned, but softer now, closer. I could hear the intake of breath between the notes. And then, without warning, a woman's voice, clear, cold, almost casual, spoke 3 words. I can see you. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just the words. It was the tone, like she wasn't talking to the room. Like she was talking to me, right then. I pulled the earbuds out again and stared at the screen. My reflection stared back from the black glass. My face was pale, my pupils wide. But something about the audio nagged at me. There was something under her voice. I replayed it, turning the volume up as far as it would go. This time, I listened beyond the obvious, the humming, the whisper, the woman's cold words, and that's when I heard it. Another voice. Lower, male, distorted, like it was coming through water, angry. It didn't speak words so much as grind them out, a vibration more felt than heard. It overlapped her voice, as though she were trying to sing over it. My breath came faster. This wasn't interference. This wasn't pipes or static or a prank. Something was on that recording with her. I turned on every light in the room. The old lamp on the desk flickered twice before holding steady. My coffee from the lobby was still on the nightstand, now cold and untouched. I felt eyes on me. Not from the door, not from the window, from the corners. I stared at the bathroom mirror, half expecting to see someone standing behind me. My own reflection looked unfamiliar, stretched too thin, like the lens had warped. The file kept playing in my ears. Sobs now. Faint, ragged sobs beneath the humming, like someone crying into their hands. Then a knock. On the recording, not at the door, 3 slow knocks, hollow, from inside the room. I pulled the earbuds out again and listened to the actual room. Nothing, just the air conditioner's low whine. But the cold had deepened. My breath misted in the glow of the desk lamp. I scrolled ahead in the file, but my thumb hesitated over the timeline. If I kept listening, I'd know more. But I already felt the knowledge pressing against me, heavy, dangerous. It wasn't just a ghost story anymore. It was proof. Proof of something I wasn't sure I wanted to believe in. And yet, I pressed play again. At the very end, just before the recording cut out, the woman whispered once more, "Stay." But this time it wasn't just her voice. The male distortion rose underneath, louder, angrier, like a growl rising from the floorboards. And for a split second, both voices spoke at once, overlapping, fused, filling my ears. "You're not alone." I dropped the phone. It hit the carpet with a dull thud. For a long moment I didn't move. The lights flickered again. I should have left then. Packed my bag, thrown the key at the front desk and driven until sunrise. But I didn't, because I had to know who she was. I couldn't shake the sound of her voice. Even when I left the room, even when I sat in the hotel cafe surrounded by clinking cups and the hiss of the espresso machine, I could still hear that word echoing, "Stay." I told myself I'd been duped by suggestion, that I'd seen too many horror movies, that sleep deprivation had warped my perception. But deep down, I knew the truth. There was something wrong with room 313, and I needed to know why. The front desk clerk wouldn't talk anymore. He avoided eye contact when I checked out a second key by mistake, pretending I'd lost mine. His hands trembled slightly as he handed it over. That was my confirmation. Whatever had happened in that room, they knew. I started digging. The town's library was 3 blocks down, a squat brick building with that peculiar smell, dust, paper, and something older beneath. I told the librarian I was researching local architecture. She smiled until I mentioned the hotel's name. Then her lips thinned and her eyes darted to the back corner. "You'll want the archives," she said softly. Downstairs. The basement was dim, quiet, almost reverent. I found the stack of old newspapers and started flipping through them. Decades of yellowed pages, names forgotten, lives compressed into ink and headlines. Then I found it. Tragedy at the Whitestone Inn, couple dead in room 313. The article was dated August 7th, 1973. My stomach turned. According to the report, a man had checked in with his wife. Witnesses said they heard shouting late that night, a fight that grew violent. When the manager broke down the door the next morning, they found the woman's body in the bathtub. The husband was gone, vanished. No fingerprints, no weapon, no body for the husband. The woman had no ID, no registration record, not even a confirmed name. She'd been signed in as Mrs. Whitestone. The reporter had written that the hotel closed that room for a time, out of respect. But months later, it reopened quietly. Business went on as usual. I leaned back, trying to steady my breathing. Then I noticed the photo printed beside the article, grainy, but clear enough to make out the room's details. The wallpaper, the ornate lamp, the pattern on the bedspread, all of it was the same. 50 years later, nothing in room 313 had changed. It wasn't just a hotel room, it was a shrine. I scanned further down the article, looking for closure, but the last paragraph cut off mid-sentence. The ink smeared as if the paper had been folded before it dried. "They say her ghost still." Still what? Still haunted it, still waited for him. I rubbed my eyes and flipped to the next issue. Nothing. The story was never followed up. It just stopped. Something about that silence was worse than any ending. I started checking city records, property transfers, lawsuits, insurance claims. Every few decades, the hotel changed ownership. Every time, the name changed slightly. Whitestone, Whitehall, Whitecrest. Like someone wanted to erase the trail but couldn't quite let go of the name. My curiosity became fixation. By the time I left the library, the sun was setting. The sky was the color of old paper, bruised purple and orange. I felt heavy, my brain buzzing with half-answers. Outside, the streets were quiet, the air thick with humidity. I passed an antique shop and caught my reflection in the glass, pale, drained. For a second, I thought I saw someone standing behind me in the reflection. A woman's shape, faint, almost transparent. When I turned around, there was no one. I should have gone anywhere else. I should have grabbed my things, left the key on the counter, and never looked back. But something in me, something I couldn't explain, needed to go back. Needed to see. I told myself I just wanted to confirm the furniture. Maybe take a few pictures for proof. That's all. Nothing more. When I walked up the creaking stairs, the hallway felt wrong. The air was thicker, colder. My footsteps didn't echo the same way. Room 313 stood at the far end, its brass numbers dulled with age. My key was still in my pocket, cool and heavy. But when I reached for the handle, I froze. The door was already open, just a few inches, enough for a sliver of darkness to bleed into the hallway. The old key tag dangled from the lock, swaying gently as if someone had just stepped inside. And from within the room, faint but unmistakable, I heard that same low humming. The same tune from the recording, the same voice, waiting. The door shut behind me with a sound that didn't belong in a hotel. It wasn't a click or a slam. It was a wet, dragging thud, like something being pulled across a floor. I spun around and grabbed the handle. It didn't move. My key slid uselessly in the lock, the brass tag swinging like a metronome. The humming was louder now. It filled the room like smoke, not coming from a corner or the bathroom or the hall, but from everywhere. The air vibrated with it, a low, tuneless sound, the kind you feel in your teeth. The lights began to flicker, not like a power surge, more like breathing. The bulbs brightened and dimmed rhythmically, casting the room into pulses of shadow and pale gold. I stumbled backward until my calves hit the bed frame, and that's when I saw her. At first, she was just an outline, a suggestion of a woman standing by the curtains, her shape broken by the flicker. Then the light held steady for a heartbeat, and her features sharpened. She wasn't walking. She was hanging, swaying gently from the ceiling, her bare feet inches above the carpet, her arms limp at her sides. Her hair was plastered across her face, soaked, dripping onto the rug in dark spots. The dress she wore was old-fashioned, high-collared, lace at the wrists, but shredded, stained like parchment left in water. Her head tilted as she swayed, and for a moment, I thought she was looking at me. But where her eyes should have been, there was only ruin. Dark sockets, the skin around them warped and swollen like waterlogged wood. The humming came from her, from inside her. It rose and fell with each sway, not through her mouth but through the room itself, like the walls were singing. I pressed my back to the headboard. My phone was on the nightstand. I reached for it, but my fingers went numb before I touched it. The air was freezing, colder than any winter morning, cold enough to make the veins in my hands ache. She turned, slowly. Her feet never touched the floor. Then her mouth opened. Not a scream, not a word. Just the sound of gurgling air, like someone trying to breathe through water. A wet rattle that made my stomach clench. She drifted closer. Not walking, gliding, still swaying, her hair trailing behind her like kelp in a current. I tried to shout, but my throat locked. The sound that came out of me wasn't even human. Her face was inches from mine now. I could smell her, not rot exactly, but dampness, rust, an old perfume gone sour. Her mouth moved, lips gray and cracked. The sound that came out was distorted, layered, like two voices at once. One high, one low. Both wrong. My name. She said my name. I pressed myself into the headboard, hard enough to feel the wood creak. My eyes squeezed shut. The humming moved closer to my ear. It wasn't coming from her anymore. It was inside my head, behind my eyes. Something brushed my shoulder, cold, wet, weightless, like the edge of a soaked curtain. I opened my eyes. She was over me now, hanging so low her hair brushed my face, strands sticking to my skin. Her mouth opened wider and wider until it wasn't a mouth anymore, but a hole, stretching down into darkness. The humming deepened into a groan that rattled the lamp on the nightstand. I clawed at the sheets, at the wall, at anything to anchor myself. My fingers slipped through something damp and warm. I realized I was gripping her dress. It tore like wet paper. She reared back, the sound rising to a shriek. The walls pulsed with it, the wallpaper rippling like skin. The lamp exploded, glass spraying across the carpet. Then silence. Total silence. She stood at the far end of the room now, her head cocked at an impossible angle, her mouth still open, but no sound. The window behind her glowed faintly with the first hint of dawn. Her shape flickered like an old film reel burning through. She raised one hand, palm outward, a gesture that might have been warning or invitation. Then she vanished. Just gone. I stayed frozen on the bed until the sun fully cleared the horizon. When the light filled the room, it was just a room again. The furniture was still. The walls didn't breathe. But when I stumbled to the bathroom and caught sight of myself in the mirror, I saw it. A handprint on my throat. Pale, wet, and unmistakable. Her fingers, her touch. And as the humming faded from my ears, a single thought cut through the fog in my head. She's not gone. She was waiting for me to come back. I thought leaving the room would end it. But you don't walk away from something like that. Not really. I packed before the sun was fully up, hands shaking so hard I dropped the keys twice. The front desk clerk barely looked at me when I checked out, just slid the receipt across the counter without a word. I wanted to tell him what I'd seen, what had touched me, but when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. My voice was gone, like she'd taken it with her. I drove until the hotel was nothing but a memory in my rearview mirror, just another rotting building off a forgotten exit. I didn't stop until the sun was high and the roads turned familiar again. For a few days, I convinced myself I was free. I ignored the bruised handprint on my neck. I ignored the cold that clung to me, no matter how high I turned the heat. I ignored the whispering that came from the corners of my apartment late at night, too faint to make out, too deliberate to be nothing. But on the fourth morning, I found something on my phone. It was an audio file, dated 2 nights ago. Timestamp 3:13 a.m. I didn't remember recording anything. I didn't even open the app since I'd left that place. I hit play. At first it was just static, soft, rhythmic, almost like breathing. Then the hum began. The same melody. Off-key, low, familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. And beneath it, a voice. Faint, female, whispering, "You shouldn't have left me." I froze. The file was 43 seconds long. I listened again, and again. Each time the whisper sounded closer, more distinct. By the 6th replay, I realized something else. There was another sound behind her voice, a faint dripping, like water falling onto carpet. I deleted the file immediately, but the next morning it was back. Same name, same timestamp. Except this time there were 2 files. The second one started with my own voice, breathing, restless, like I was recording in my sleep. Then, in the last few seconds, her whisper cut through again. "I can see you." I threw the phone across the room. The screen cracked when it hit the wall, but the sound didn't stop. The playback kept running, muffled but clear enough to make my skin crawl. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt her there, hanging somewhere behind my thoughts, humming softly. I started keeping the lights on, playing music, sleeping with the TV running just to drown out the silence. But it didn't help. Because the silence isn't where she hides. It's the noise, the static between sounds, the soft pause before a song changes, the faint hum in an empty room. A friend came by a few days later. I told him everything, or tried to. He listened politely, eyes darting toward the door. When I showed him the recordings, they were gone, not deleted, gone. He gave me that look people give when they were trying to be kind to someone who asked losing it. Maybe I was. But then, that night, when I was trying to sleep, I heard my phone buzz. I grabbed it, nothing on the screen, no notifications, no missed calls, except the recording app was open, and it was already running. The timer read 00.003.13. I swear I hadn't touched it. I watched, frozen, as the seconds continued ticking upward. Then I heard it through the speaker. Soft, wet, unmistakable. Drip, drip, drip. Then the hum. Faint at first, then closer. And under it, a voice. My room is ready. I dropped the phone. The sound didn't stop. It's still recording, even now. I can see the app running every night, the same timestamp flashing like a heartbeat. I deleted the app. I factory reset the phone. I even got a new one. But somehow, the files keep reappearing. They always start at 3:13 a.m. They always end with humming. And sometimes, if I listen closely enough, I can still hear her whisper right beside me. You shouldn't have left me. I told myself I'd moved on. I deleted the photos, threw away the cracked phone, even changed jobs, anything to stop thinking about that room. But the thing about fear is, it doesn't fade. It festers. It waits. 3 months after I left the hotel, I started dreaming about it again. Always the same image, room 3113's door, half open, light spilling out, and that faint hum bleeding through the crack. Every time, I'd wake up gasping, drenched in cold sweat, my ears ringing with a voice I couldn't quite remember, only the last word, come. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was trauma, stress, maybe even sleep paralysis. But then, things started showing up again. Emails. The first one came from an address I didn't recognize, just a string of numbers. No subject line, no message, just a file attachment named Room 313 JPG. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. It was a photo of a door, that door. Same cracked number plate, same peeling paint, except the lights were on this time, and through the window beside it, I could see someone standing inside. The silhouette was blurry, but the outline was unmistakable. It was me. I deleted the email immediately, but 2 nights later, another one arrived. This time, the sender's address was familiar, too familiar. It was mine, and the subject line read, "Welcome back." The message was simple, a hotel confirmation. Check in for room 313. The dates matched the coming weekend. I tried to tell myself it was a prank, maybe some sick joke from whoever found my story online. But when I checked the booking link, it took me to the hotel's official website. Everything looked normal. Contact number, reviews, gallery. Even the Book Now button worked. Except when I scrolled through the photos, something felt wrong. One of the thumbnails caught my eye, the image for room 313. It wasn't just a generic stock photo anymore. It was a picture of me, standing at the window, staring out into the parking lot. Same jacket I wore that night. Same expression, blank, tired, afraid. I slammed the laptop shut. My heart wouldn't slow down. But curiosity has a way of mutating into obsession, especially when fear is involved. I couldn't shake it. I needed to see it, needed to prove to myself the place was gone, that it wasn't waiting. So I drove back. It took 6 hours. The closer I got, the worse the weather turned. Fog swallowing the highway, rain starting in short bursts, wipers barely keeping up. When I finally pulled into the lot, I almost didn't recognize it. The hotel was dead. Windows boarded, sign broken, half the building wrapped in caution tape. A rusted padlock hung on the door. The paint was peeling, the walls blackened by mold. It looked like it hadn't been open in years. But when I checked my phone, the GPS marker still listed it as open 24 hours. Even the booking confirmation was still active. And that's when I saw it. The time on the confirmation email, 3:13 a.m. Lightning flashed, and for a split second, I thought I saw something move in the top floor window, a shape shifting just behind the curtain of room 313. I stood there in the rain, staring up until my vision blurred. That's when my phone buzzed. New email. Sender, me. Subject, check-in confirmed. Message body. It is like the room is still waiting for someone to check in. Below that, a photo was attached, the one from earlier. Only this time, the reflection in the window was clearer. It wasn't me anymore. It was her. Wet hair, pale skin, eyes like black glass. I dropped the phone and stumbled back, nearly tripping over the cracked pavement. The screen flickered once before going black. When I picked it up again, the email had vanished, but the clock on the display had frozen. 3:13. It's been that way ever since. I don't know if the hotel still exists. Maybe it never did. But if you look it up right now, the Ashmore Inn, exit 17 off I-92, you'll find it listed. Still open, still welcoming guests. And if you scroll through the photos, you'll see it. Room 313. The curtains drawn, the lights on, and someone standing by the window. If you're wondering, yes, I clicked book now. You don't have to believe me. Honestly, I wish you wouldn't, because belief is the thing that keeps it alive. Every person who hears this story, everyone who pictures that door, that humming, that number, gives it just enough space to exist again. You think I'm exaggerating? You think this is some Reddit creepypasta to pass the time? That's what I thought too. Until my phone buzzed again. Another email. No subject line. Just one word in the body. Thanks. No sender. No return path. But the timestamp? 3:13 a.m. I've stopped trying to delete them. They always come back. And lately I've started hearing it again. The faint, slow hum behind me when the world goes quiet. It's like she's never far. Just waiting for the right moment to be remembered. Maybe that's what ghosts really are. Not souls or echoes. Just stories that refuse to die. You see, every time I tell this, the same thing happens. Someone comments saying they stayed in a hotel last weekend, room 313. Someone else says they heard humming outside their door. Someone else swears they got an email confirmation from an old hotel that shouldn't even exist. And I never know which of them is lying, or which one is next. So if you're listening to this right now, if you made it all the way to the end, I need you to promise me something. Don't stay in any hotel room numbered 313. Not for a night, not even for a minute. And if you ever get a confirmation email you didn't book, don't open it. If you hear humming tonight, don't hum back. And for the love of whatever's left of you, don't look at the reflection in your window after midnight. Because once you see her, she sees you too. That's how it starts. The story becomes yours. And you start to wonder when you'll get the message, when you'll wake up to that sound, that hour, that room number that wasn't supposed to mean anything. But now, it does. Because the truth is, room 313 isn't a place, it's an invitation. And now it's found you. You don't have to believe me, but you will.